Evening. I'm Scott from Game All Trades, streaming some Divinity Original Sin 2 on this Tuesday, not October 17th. I've had this game for a couple of days now, and had a chance to test out a lot of the classes. I've done the boat opening scene probably 10 times already, to try out some different builds, things like that. Tonight I'm going to show a Dwarven pure Scoundrel type build. I had a lot of fun in the opening area doing some stealing, but I wasn't very optimized for it with any of my other builds, so I'm going to try that this time. We're going to go and get started. I'm nowhere near good enough to do anything other than Classic at this point. I'll probably go through and beat the game once before I try anything harder. Alright, real quick, for those who are not yet familiar with the game, I'm going to go through the character creation. So in Divinity Original Sin 2, you have two choices. You can make your own custom character, or you can choose from one of several pre-mades. They're called origin characters. For example, there's Sibyl here, a female elven character. She starts by default as a conjurer. Or no, I'm sorry, that's the preset that you can change for any of them, the pre-built classes. The Red Prince, who is a lizard folk, he starts as more of a fighter. Sibyl is more of a rogue type character when you don't start as her. Los, who's kind of like a bard support type character, human female. We got Ifan, the human male. He is a wayfarer, I believe it is. He specializes in ranged. Fane. Now this game has a really interesting race of the undead. Although Fane is a special variety of undead that the story will explain. However, what's neat about them is that they heal with poison damage, and regular healing actually damages them. So it's a neat little twist for a game like this to be able to do something like that. Can definitely add some extra strategy layers to it, and it can definitely provide some challenges as well. My first few builds revolved around that and trying to do poison damage to both heal myself and damage enemies. However, I found out that unless my party in general was proficient in a lot of poison skills, I quickly would run out and I would have no ability to heal myself, because all the regular healing potions and healing abilities would damage me instead. Beast, we have one of the Dwarven characters. I believe he starts as a battle mage, is what they call it. But again, when you choose the origin, you can make any build you like. What else is interesting is all of those origin characters will be in the story and can be potential party members when you join them. And when you meet them, you can actually still tweak them a little bit to your liking. If your character, for example, has a lot of similar traits to theirs, you can have them tweak theirs. But we'll get to that when we come to it. So I am going to... Oh, and then for every race there can be an undead version of that. So what's neat is you get the special trait from being undead, but also one of the special traits for being the lizard. For this playthrough, simply because of the Dwarven Guile, the +1 sneaking, so right away before I even level up, I'm already going to have a point in sneaking, which the sneaking ability is going to help me get into stealth easier. The little cones of vision that the NPCs will have will be smaller. And I believe your sneaking score has an impact on a check when you try to pickpocket, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. The preset here doesn't matter because I want to make it custom. And I'm just going to leave the default name. So for appearance, I like my rogue type characters to be a little darker. Easier to hide in the shadows. Maybe this turf color. Some of these faces are pretty wild. There we go. I have a feeling that there are some popular ones and definitely unpopular ones. For hair, let's do that slicked back. Kind of looks like a pirate at this point. We'll go with some dark hair. And we got the variety of bushy dwarf beards. And that just looks wrong. He's got to have something on there. I'm okay with just that much. Keeps it, you know, short and neat and out of the way, so he's not tripping over it when he's sneaking around.
Nice try. I'll yield to none.
And I'm gonna go with the warrior voice, just fits a dwarf character better, in my opinion. Now let's pick some skills. So you can choose the presets based on kind of what flavor you want your character, but none of them matter if you choose your own attributes. I do know, though, there is a... I missed it already. Rogue. That's going to get pretty close to what we're looking for in the first place. So it's already putting points in finesse, which is our finesse-based weapons. Things like daggers, bows are going to use that. And a point for constitution for some extra health. I could get rid of that and get more finesse to do more damage, but early on in the game, not being very tanky, I think I want the extra health. And one thing I will mention too, from my, at least from my beginning playthroughs, I've noticed that tanking isn't so much a thing. You could make your guy very, very strong, wear thick, heavy armor, which will prevent them from taking a lot of physical damage, but there aren't a lot of abilities that lock an enemy onto you to force you to use that. So I've had builds where I had a couple of really strong melee fighters, and the enemies would simply teleport behind them and kill my squishies. So take that into consideration when you're working on a build. I imagine further on there are a move here and there that do that very thing. But especially early on, Constitution I would probably say is a little bit more important of a stat than it would be in a lot of games like this, for every class. So for abilities, they break them down into combat abilities and civil abilities. The combat abilities, especially here at character generation, is very, very, very important, because it's going to give you skills for free based on which ones you pick. So in the combat abilities, you've got skill sets, which are basically this game's version of classes. And what's cool is even when you start, you have 2 points, so you can mix and match. Weapon types, which is just straight up extra damage or crits or accuracy using that weapon. It doesn't give you necessarily some extra skills, but it will make whatever you pick better. And then there's some ones in defense. Retribution actually reflects damage. That would be good for a tankier type, if you were to make one. Leadership grants dodging and resistance to allies within 5 meters. I've noticed the maps, the battles are pretty widespread, simply because there are a lot of AoE moves, so you don't want to keep your party within 5 meters that frequently. So other than maybe the first turn when you get surprised, I'm not sure how valuable that is. Perseverance restores magic armor. Okay, so this kind of helps you recover after taking a hit, which is kind of neat. But to start with, you definitely want to pick, and you get 2 points. You almost always are going to want to put them in 2 sets of skills. The reason for that being, just out of example, we're going to make a warfare huntsman. We're not going to, but I'm just going to show you. We'll confirm that. So the skills that we have to choose from now, we can pick 4 from the warfare, 4 from the huntsman. We can have a total of 3 skills. So if I go back in here and I take huntsman off and put on scoundrel, I can choose from Warfare or Scoundrel. I can no longer take Huntsman abilities. And even further important beyond that, new abilities, you do not obtain them by leveling up. So when you level up and you decide I'm going to put another point in Scoundrel, you're not going to gain new Scoundrel abilities. You will gain access to them, but at least as far as I can tell, abilities come from skill books. And skill books are either purchased, stolen, found, or you can actually, I've read, you can make a skill book from a skill scroll, but I haven't seen how you do that. And so because of that, I think, yeah, even if I put 2 points in Scoundrel right now, it's going to give me the same 4. Now, it's going to make these 4 more powerful, and a pure build would do that, would recommend that. But if you want more of a variety to start with, picking 2 would help you do just that. And I can really quick go over what each of them. So Warfare is straight up like battle type moves. I'll just go through each one. So Warfare and Huntsman again. Crippling Blow, so that's an AoE type move. Battle Stomp, it's an AoE like a cone AoE, and it can do knockdown, which is really important because it'll actually make them skip their turn to get back up. Battering Ram is a charge type ability, and Bouncing Shields is a throw as a range type move, which is handy for a traditional fighter. These 2 moves to close the gap and to do some range damage are pretty good. Huntsmen, then, on the other hand, are kind of like the Ranger, the Archer. So they've got an ability where they can target a surface on the battle map. So if there's a patch of fire already on the map, you can use this ability, target that, and now your arrows are going to shoot fire. Or poison, or whatever you can find. First Aid for healing yourself and getting rid of statuses. Pin Down is a strong ranged attack, and then also Cripples, which is going to lower their movement. And Ricochet, which is kind of a spread shot if 2 people are close to each other. Scoundrel I'm going to do last because that's the one we're going to pick. So Pyrotechnic, Pyrokinetic, Hydrosophist, Aerothurge, Geomancer, Necromancer, those are all the caster types, even Summoning and Polymorph to a lesser degree. And they're exactly what you'd think they'd be. Pyrokinetic is fire, Hydrosophist is water, Aerothurge is air, Geomancer is earth and poison. And so their abilities. So for fire, there's Searing Daggers, which can shoot a target or ground, light it on fire, light the enemy on fire. Peace of Mind, which is a buff, and status remover. Haste gives you more mobility and action points for a lot more turns. And Ignition is kind of a big AoE around yourself to light things up. Kind of dangerous though, because I believe it lights your own guys too. And for water, not necessarily what you'd call a healer. It does have a healing ability, Restoration, a very powerful one. You pretty much almost always want at least party member that can take care of that for you. But they also do damage. Hail Strike drops icicles and freezes the surface. Armor of Frost is a barrier spell to give you extra magic armor. And Rain will give the wet status effect as well as put out fires. I've noticed a lot in the early game. There's a lot of fires everywhere that can make maps quite dangerous just to walk around. Let's do Aerothurge and Geomancy. So Aerothurge is air, lightning type. So this is a kind of a touch spell that does some damage and shocks, the shock status effect. Same thing, but I believe this one is ranged. Favorable Wind. An aura increases your allies' movement speed as long as they're close to you. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the auras. Blinding Radiance. This is another AoE around yourself, so everything around you will take air damage and you can blind people. Geomancy is kind of earth and poison. I will say this, if you are playing an undead, Geomancer is almost always a plus. This is where you're going to get your poison moves. Or at least try to have some party members that take Geomancy. So Fossil Strike is a fairly common early move that even the monsters will do. It chucks a rock and it drops an AoE of oil on the ground, and that oil not only will slow you if you're in it, but then it can be lit on fire very commonly, that combination. Fortify is going to give you some extra physical armor and get rid of some status effects. Contamination is another one of the AoEs. This one is a poison AoE. And you can see there that if you're near water or blood or clouds, it will turn those into poison as well. And Poison Dart, same thing, this is a ranged spell. So you could either shoot something and poison it, or you could chuck a poison puddle on the ground, maybe in front of a monster, so that when he walks through it, he has to become poison to get to you. Or you could, you could Poison Dart your own ally if they were undead, and that would heal them. Necromancer and Summoning. So Necromancer, I want to point out, not only does it provide access to some spells and abilities that are pretty neat, but the ability itself also causes you to heal yourself whenever you deal damage. So that actually applies to anything. Even if I was playing a pure rogue, if I took a point of necromancy, 10% of all the damage I deal permanently is going to heal me. So that's not a bad thing to dip a point or two into later on in a build if you have a lot of physical damage. So the Necromancer move. So we've got Bloated Corpse Raise. You literally will target a body on the field, and they turn into a little minion for you. They can run around. They're very weak. They have very weak health. They can do an attack, but really what they're used for is they basically become a little mobile bomb, and so you move them near some enemies and you blow them up, and they do quite a bit of damage. Mosquito Swarm. This is a very neat ability. For anyone who does take a point in Necromancy, this might be the move to use it on. So it's a long range attack that does damage and heals you for the amount of damage they did. Bloodsucker. Consumes blood surfaces around you, restoring vitality. So in combat, and especially if you use a bloated corpse and you explode it, it's going to explode into a huge pool of blood. You literally can walk into that pool, use this ability, and it will suck the blood off the ground and heal you with it. Decaying Touch. So this is a nasty ability. So it does a little bit of physical damage to a character, which is fine, but it also gives them a status called Decay. What that status does is it essentially turns them undead for a few turns, for 2 turns. So just like an undead, if someone tries to heal them, it will damage them. I'm not sure, I haven't tested it if poison then for those 2 turns actually heals you. It'd be interesting to figure that out. But yeah, it can be absolutely nasty, especially on somebody almost dead on the opposing team or cast on your team. Somebody's almost dead, they put Decaying Touch on there. Now you were getting a healing potion or a heal spell ready for them, and now you can't, or you'll finish them off yourself. That actually happened to me in one of my games. So Summoning, admittedly Summoning's not the one I've tried yet. I do know that Summoning is very powerful in this game. So there's a conjure that you can make the elemental type that you conjure match the ground. So you can target fire and make a fire elemental, and so on and so forth. A random ranged bolt of damage, and then creates a corresponding surface. So if you shoot the bolt and it turns into fire, wherever it lands, it's going to make fire, but you don't have control over it. An elemental totem, so it's another type of summon. Again, if you target fire, it's going to make a fire totem, and then that fire totem is going to shoot fire. And then Infusion unlocks a ranged attack for your incarnate. So these summons are melee, unless you also take this ability, which looks like it also provides some extra magic armor. I don't know if that's for you or for the summon itself. Probably for the summon. And then finally, Polymorph. Because as you'll see, I'll pick single-handed. It doesn't give you skills. Polymorph. So turn target into a chicken. I guess this used to be really, really powerful, but shortly before I got the game, apparently that was nerfed. I don't know any more further than that. Tentacle Lash. Again, I haven't done a Polymorph or a Summoner. They were the bottom of the list, so I never tried them yet, but it's a physical damage and Atrophy. Not sure what Atrophy is. Bull Horns. It looks like this is another charge attack. And Chameleon Cloak. So the Polymorph is, again, and for 2 reasons, I'll explain this second in a minute, is another one that people like to dip a point or 2 in, and a lot of it's for this ability. So this ability here literally will make you invisible for 2 turns. And now you can do whatever you like with that invisibility. You can use it as a rogue, and I may, with this build, I may take it and go invisible with this in the middle of a fight to get better position to get some sneak attacks. But you could also do it outside of combat if you wanted to be invisible. The only problem is turns go very, very quickly outside of combat, so you'd have to do something really quick with it. The other reason people take the Polymorph ability is this. For every point you put in Polymorph, you get a free attribute point above. So now that I have a point in Polymorph, if I go back here and edit my attributes again, I can now add another point and have 2 12s. Or you could potentially have as much as a 14 on one stat. And those are all the abilities. I'll go really quick on the civils, but those don't really come into play so much at the beginning. And a lot of them, there's been some arguments on how valuable they are at all. So telekinesis will literally let you move things with your mind. A little blue beam will come out of your head and you'll move things. Now you can use this to get some obstacles out of your way. Sometimes there'll be a path blocked with boxes or rocks or something like that, and you can move the rocks with your mind if you have enough points in it. And further points in it let you do it from further away. I had a build where I had a couple points in this, and it let me pick up a chest that was in this tiny little hidden area. There's no way to walk to it. I picked up that chest and I brought it to me so I could open it, and there was some valuable stuff in there. Lore Master is for identifying items. I've heard this one is one of the worst abilities because later on in the game you can just go to town every time you find something that's unidentified and get it identified. Okay, so sneaking and thievery here, this is the bread and butter for this build. So sneaking itself, again, it shrinks the NPC sight counts, so, and you'll see when I do some sneaking in a little bit. You cannot sneak. It will fail if you're in their line of sight, and so this makes it so that you can sneak in more locations easier. Thievery, on the other hand, kind of does double duty here. Thievery is for picking locks. A door will have a thievery value that you have to meet to pick the lock, and also pickpocketing. And as you can see there where it says next level, the amount of points you have in thievery will increase the amount of either weight or gold value of the stuff you steal. So you want to get that as high as possible if you want to steal a lot of stuff. And the reason that's important is because you can only have a character steal from somebody once ever. You can then turn around and have the rest of the party try to steal things too, individually, but that also provides a challenge because as soon as you pickpocket from somebody, after a few seconds, they're going to notice stuff is stolen and you got to be out of there. Personality, these are fairly obvious. So bartering will make the character, stuff that they try to buy will be cheaper, things that they try to sell will be more valuable. What's a little annoying about bartering in this game is you have to make sure that all the stuff that you want to sell is on the character's inventory that has the bartering ability. It's not party-wide. So, like this character here, I won't have any points in bartering, probably ever, because I'll be putting them in other points. So if I want to sell things, if this is my main character of the party, I have to one by one transfer all of my items to my other party member that has bartering, and then have him sell it. Kind of annoying, but I guess it adds a little bit of extra flavor to actually make them have to do it. Persuasion, this is for some dialogue interaction, changes some tree branches, and also base attitude. And base attitude comes into play with other things like bartering. If base attitude is higher, they'll sell you things for cheaper. Lucky Charm, apparently this is a very, very powerful one. With a bunch of points in here, you can find the rarest stuff in the stupidest buckets and barrels and locations. So as a thief, that has a lot of appeal to me. As does Persuasion, because on occasion, even if you steal from somebody and you dump the goods, you sell them or whatever, and you go near that person, they'll come up to you and they'll suspect you of stealing anyway, and you'll have a kind of a conversation off, and you can try to persuade them that you didn't do it if your persuasion's high enough, or you'll have to bribe them. And if you fail that, a lot of times they'll call the guards and they'll attack you, and that'll be a game wipe, depending on how powerful your party is at the time. So persuasion can be pretty good too. So we'll see what happens. But other than that, I think I've said a lot. One thing I will note, kind of another interesting thing for undead, which probably makes them a very popular class, or race. Undead can actually use their finger bones to pick locks without needing lockpicks. So that would be a bonus for me to pick undead instead of a dwarf. I will have a point of thievery, but I will not start with lockpicks unless I get lucky and find one in the boat. So that skill will be useless until I find one, or buy one once I get to town. So going back to my skills, I did say I was going to go pure Scoundrel. The nice thing with Scoundrel is it's going to up my chance to crit, and it literally will up my amount of speed that I can move. So it really helps to be mobile for a Scoundrel, because you can backstab if you have the right weapons, and to backstab you have to be in the little cone on their back, which you'll see in the fight. So like I said, I may drop a point here for summoning for the invisibility ability, or polymorphing, we'll see. Maybe necromancer for some self-healing. But for now, we're going to go pure Scoundrel like the channel title, the game stream title said I was going to do. And we'll continue on because we're not done yet. Talents. So talents, if you're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons or things like that, a talent is kind of like a feat. It's a very powerful selection that can modify the way you play quite a bit if you pick the right ones. And you only have a limited amount of them to pick from. And the race you pick gives you 2 automatically. So Dwarven Guile gave me a free point of sneaking. And Sturdy is going to give me more health to start with, which is great. And a higher chance to dodge, which is also great for a rogue, because I'm going to be in melee with not a lot of armor, no shield. I'm going to need to dodge as much as I can. There's a lot in here. I'm not going to go through them all. But I will say there's a few that I've used in the past that have been very, very powerful. Escapist would be good for a rogue. Allows you to flee combat when enemies are right next to you. So enemies have attack of opportunity, a lot of them. Also a familiar term for D&D. If you try to run away from an enemy without this ability, a lot of times they're going to get a free shot at you. And if you're running away because you're hurt already, that might be the thing that finishes you off. So this one would prevent that. Gorilla would be a great one for rogues. While sneaking, your attack damage is increased 40%. So that would make that first drop shot do a lot of damage, and that may be what I pick. I'm not quite sure. There are a few that I will talk about that are special. Lone Wolf gives you a huge bonus to your character. It gives you more actions per turn. You recover the actions faster. You have more health, more armor, more magic armor. And when you level up, you get double the points. And the reason you get all this is because you have to adventure solo or with only one other companion. So if you at any time have 3 members of your party, you get none of those. But it definitely would provide a challenge to run 2 characters with this ability in a 2-man party and see how well you can get through the game that way. Pet Pal is another really amusing one, and actually I've seen a lot of guides recommend to grab it. And actually, like it says in the tooltip here, it lets you talk to animals. So there'll be sheep and frogs and lizards, and you can speak to them. And apparently there are a lot of side quests and a lot of quest rewards that you can obtain from the animals. And no race gets this by default, so you would have to take it as a talent. But I don't think that really fits my guy. The Pawn is another very strong one that I've did a little research on for rogues especially. You get 1 action point worth of movement for free per turn. So it really ups your mobility. Because 1 action point can be quite a bit of movement, especially for a rogue that gets bonus movement to get themselves into position. And one more that I've used that's really nice. Let's see if I can find it. I might. Executioner. I don't have a point in warfare, which is why it's not available to me right now. But if you were more of a melee type, you get 2 extra action points if you kill something, and that can chain. So you can kill something, get 2 more points. That's enough to attack one more thing. Kill it, get 2 more points. But that's not available to me because I am not warfare. So knowing that, I think I will take pawn, and probably strongly considering gorilla next. Tags. So tags, these are for social encounters. Depending on your background, and you can pick 1 or 2. Your history will allow different conversation options. Let's see, for a rogue, I'm not an entertainer. I'm not a mystic. I'm not a noble. Definitely outlaw if it's a rogue. So am I a soldierly rogue, or a scholarly rogue, or a savage animal? Let's go with that. Instruments, finally. This is just a little flavor piece for your game. Whichever one you pick here, that type of instrument will play a lot for sound effects, things like that. So, for example, this kind of bansuri flute. And kind of 3 string instruments. I'm just going to go with the first one. And I think I am good. So let's look back at the preset, make sure these are all right. Oh, look, I forgot to set my skills. That would have been real bad. So being a pure, I only have 1 set of skills to choose from, so I get to pick 3 of the 4. Adrenaline is amazing for rogues. You gain 2 action points immediately, but next turn you lose 2 action points. So you want to use this when you're about to finish something off and the battle will be over anyway. Throwing knife. So this is like your 1 ranged attack, so I pretty much have to have it. If something's not within range, I need to do something. And the nice thing is it can backstab, so if I'm behind something, just too far away, I can get the extra backstab damage. And then finally, the other 2 I have to choose from. It's a pretty obvious choice. So there's a move called Backlash, which lets you leap towards an enemy. The movement is included with the single action point. You can see the little green dot at the top. That tells you how many action points it did. So a knife takes 2 action points. Backlash takes 1 to do. And then the number at the bottom right, that's how many turns cooldown it has. So if you can do this every 3 turns, every 1 turn, or every other. Backlash lets you leap over an enemy to the rear of them and stabs them for damage. The cooldown on it is bad, but it gets you in that position automatically, and it gives you essentially free movement with the backlash and puts you in the right position. Chloroform's a neat one, and maybe as soon as I get another free skill slot, I'll obviously take that because that's the only abilities I have. It will get rid of magic armor if your opponent has magic armor. Like for example, the physical damage of a throwing knife and the physical damage of a backlash is going to go against physical armor, not magical armor first. So this would actually allow you to do magic armor damage. And some enemies will have strong magic armor, some will have strong physical armor, some will have none of one or the other. So it helps to have abilities that damage each type. And what's nice with this one is that if they are out of magic armor, it will set the opponent to sleep. But I gotta have the backlash to get in position. And so the talent was chosen, the pawn, tags, instruments, presets, abilities, skills, done. And that was 40 minutes of character generation. Thanks for sticking with me. I'm going to skip some of this story so that it doesn't spoil it for people.
So it wasn't a dream after all.
And we will proceed. The first thing I like to do is I like to clear up my hotbar. There's some weird stuff they start you with. You don't want to misclick. Like this guy's got a poison flask, which is great if I'm trying to poison somebody, but that would hurt me if I misthrow it. I like to put my healing potions and res scrolls way over here so I don't click them when I don't want to. Dome of Protection is my special source ability. And without giving away too much of the story, I don't have access to source abilities yet. So that leaves me with a basic attack with a weapon I don't have yet. Adrenaline, Backlash, Throwing Knife, and the Dwarven special ability Petrifying Touch, which lets me turn something to stone. And also remove Bleeding, Burning, Poison, and Cripple. So there actually could be some occasions where I would want to do that onto myself or party members to help their stats and just deal a small amount of damage to them. Go ahead and get started. And I'm going to probably fly through these pretty quick just because I've done this a few times. The Alt key will highlight many items, not all though, so you can't really use it as a crutch. For example, it's highlighting there's a skull here, but it's not highlighting the fact that there's a cabinet here, and there could have been something in there randomly. Or the fact that there's a barrel over here. Nope.
Ah, you're up. There. Not too tight, I hope. The collar, I mean. In the meantime, you'll find him on the other side of this deck. In the
So here's those tags that we selected earlier.
Dungeon?
Index fingers pressed to her.
My word. Oh well, a new life awaits. And if you're a particular... Why, for my
Currents of magics.
My. There you have it. For your own...
Good gods! There's been a murder here.
Wow, I'm having no luck with these barrels. One thing for the interface that is kind of handy for you, you can see the cursor changes depending on what you're hovering over. If something is gray, that means you've already looked there. It was gold until you did look. So that kind of really quickly gives you an indicator of you don't have to search that again.
Behind the Magister.
There's been a Waters is investigating. It's a small hoof.
No known associates. In fact, he seemed quite averse to spending time with the others.
Okay, so right away, let's turn down the lights. I want to take advantage of my sneakiness, and I want to rob some of these guys. So I'm going to use my sneak key, which is the letter C. And you can see here the difference in the floor. The dark red is their line of sight, and as she moves, it moves. And as she turned, she saw me, and that automatically made me fail. Once or twice, we'll get some negative attention. Too many times, I think they'll actually just start attacking you.
Spick and span. Nothing left to do, really.
But what I can go ahead and do is re-sneak. Once I'm confident they're not going to move again.
No marks, no indications of a struggle.
Walk up. Do a quick save to not ruin your game. And now that I'm sneaking, oh, she didn't see me somehow. Icon turns to pickpocket. And so the inventory, the menu here, you've got total weight and total value. Everything you grab will either go towards weight or towards value. And if you ever let that bar fill, it'll turn red.
No known associates. In fact, he
And,
seemed quite
you'll fail.
averse to spending time with the others.
So now that I've stolen from them, I need to get out of there. Because very shortly, yep, right now, she discovered that she'd been robbed. What I like to do is have a little safe spot and dump the stolen goods. And they'll be marked stolen. You can see the red stolen there. Now if somebody does confront me, gold doesn't, no, gold does do that, I'm sorry. If somebody does confront me, I don't have any of that stuff on me. Double check. However, like I said earlier, sometimes that won't be enough. They'll suspect you anyway. And if you can't convince them otherwise, they will attack you or arrest you. And while I'm at it, let's take care of this person. I don't know if this affects it, but the lights are there for a reason, so maybe turning them down. Lowers the cone. Cannot get that to do that. There we go. And stolen from. So let's talk to this guy.
Nothing to see here.
Get him to look in that direction. Talk to her.
A young magister stands.
Get her to look in that direction. Steal, steal, steal. Oh, I'm in trouble. So the magister there that I stole from figured something was going on and started moving around. So they won't always just stay put in their pre-programmed area. Sometimes they'll go looking for people, and that's when you gotta get out of there. So now this gold is mine. I think if I mix it... Yeah, anything that can be stacked, they can't differentiate what's theirs. So stackables are one of the safer things to steal. So at this point, I'm gonna save. One most important hint I will give you, anybody playing this game is save all the time. Multiple save slots. You will not regret it. This guy's got a lot of stuff. Oh, I am... I believe if I take this, I'm going to break the weight requirement, so... which will make me fail. Yeah, right away, pickpocketed.
That's enough now.
Get rid of the evidence. So interestingly, even if you stack two stolen things together, they're no longer stolen. So now I can keep these fish. One thing you definitely wouldn't want to do probably is roam around with stolen gear on you. Probably draws their attention. So I did have to leave one thing on that guy, and just to show, already pickpocketed. So unless I have another party member, that item to me is lost forever. But let's leave them alone for now and just explore the rest of the boat.
I just don't. She looked.
I could.
She pat.
There. I don't.
Insufferable, surely.
A scruffy man, lad.
So you'll see
Rolling his
here
eyes
on
at
this
the
boat
Magister's warning. The man leaned,
Pinches
hocking a flip,
are
and
the
standing. If and
same as he
origin
wants
characters
now.
that
The
you
dead.
could have chosen.
Damn shame. The joy. Wonder if he.
What are you?
Up.
Nay,
Magister.
away with
If and
And I'm intentionally skipping through fairly rapidly to not ruin the story for you guys. Plus, I've read it all many, many times. When you are playing here, this is a really big, good use of the left alt key to find hidden items. There's pretty much no way to visually see the key that's hiding here that opens this door.
Your kind always hung close.
But when you're holding down the alt key, you can click the word. I can click potato,
Well,
and it grabs that potato
we've
for
got
you.
this wolf on a leash now.
I probably did this starting area 5 or 6 times before I accidentally stumbled upon that.
Right over the side of this ship with it.
And until then, I had no idea how to get through that door. But this is definitely the kind of game where you want to loot everything,
That right. I always knew.
especially early on, because there could be a weapon, a restoration scroll, healing potion, anywhere you might find it.
Well,
Another easy to miss thing is this paper
wolf on a
here.
leash now.
This is the kitchen, so if you click it, you learn some cooking recipes.
Right over the side of this ship with it.
It was one of them. I know it.
And on we go.
You put a knuckle in it. I'm trying to concentrate.
Here's one of the more amusing things from this game.
They don't care about us.
So there's a lot of buckets laying around.
I'll give
And
you that knuckle if you keep
what better
carrying
use
on.
for a bucket than a very, very
One of
low
us
level
will
helmet?
get our own. They're picking us off
It
one
provides
by
3
one.
physical armor. It actually lowers your initiative, which is funny,
We
because
just
you can't
stepped
really
to
see
the
with
part
it
where
as
I
well on.
reassure you,
And if you
shut
equip it,
up.
you can see just that.
You think me mad?
But until you find better helmets, it's kind of funny because you end up with the whole party running around with buckets on their heads.
What are you trying to hear anyway?
And you can turn that visual off.
I'll tell you
The
if you can
checkbox.
keep it quiet long enough for me to listen.
How dare you classify this slop as food? I've seen more appetizing things coming out of
a
plates.
broad dwarf. He rakes.
Listen up, boy.
There's
He
Beast.
opens. Oh, the dwarf. He continued. Stay away from.
Well,
Red Prince.
The little.
no, on.
Meanwhile,
Never thought you'd end up a prison guard.
That's right. I always knew you'd turn out rotten, Ben Nest. Your kind always hung closest to our divine, like wolves around a campfire.
Well, you've got this wolf.
Name? Well, you are.
As soon as the Inquisitor gets here, we'll have to right over the side of this ship with it.
Ah, there you are. Would you please tell how what?
She
Got it. Nope. You take.
suddenly, as quickly.
Good luck, Chief.
And you can see an attitude plus or minus. Even the NPCs, even your own party members actually will remember some of the actions you take, the decisions you make,
The
and
elf
like
is
you or
reading a
dislike you
volume of
because of it.
Cranny. He sits back
And apparently,
My
if
book
you
you
get a
grabbed.
party
No,
member to
there
dislike
were-
you enough,
oh,
they will
you
leave
have-
your party
perhaps I should
forever.
demand- Perhaps. Take this. It is.
So
tell
you
me,
certainly
what
want
do you
to,
know of your? Oh, please. No. This. Where did? Now.
Be careful on who you're taking and what kind of activities you're going to do when you have them.
Here to register, you fair enough. Glad you head up.
Insufferable.
So I believe I'm done here.
What are you trying to hear anyway? Keep those bolts tight on her, and if she tries
Top door's barricaded. No way through for now.
You're so on edge, officer. What on earth is the matter?
Might be my first equipment drop there.
I strongly suspect you know all about it.
And there's literally nothing.
Well, perhaps.
I almost like playing a rogue even better because of this, but basically anything not nailed down is mine. Anything that's not red. Something that cannot, that taking would be considered stealing, the cursor will show up red.
I've never died on anything less than a dozen.
Standing at the center.
Yes,
She's
stuff hits the fan there. This chest will always take into account the class you picked and give you some, almost always, will give you some appropriate weapons to do that. In this case, since I went pure scoundrel, they decided to give me 4 of the same weapon. But at least at this point, I've got something. So we'll throw those on. Let's auto sort by equipment. I've already got a bucket. Let's throw these tattered shoes on. At least it's 1 point of armor. Have not been too fortunate yet in finding better stuff. I would imagine if I'd put a point in lucky for level 1, I probably would have already found some good stuff. And you can see here right away that terrain really matters in this game. You can see pools of fire, pools of blood. You can see some bodies if you were a necromancer that you could use. But now this little event has happened. Need to go back through the same place in the boat. Oops. Little thing sells. There is an encumbrance limit. Just haven't quite gotten there yet.
What? The lizards.
And so all of the
dwarf lies. You hear it.
origin characters got knocked out and all the guards got loaded up.
If Anne lies,
Not sure if it makes any difference to go and check on each of them, but I have every time. I suppose one of my playthroughs I should have not done it just to see what happens.
No,
it's no
the dice. That's everything. I don't think there was any equipment in here that I stole. Oh, there was the one pair of pants. So we'll put a level 2 physical armor shirt on.
The young woman loved. So again, terrain can almost work as a puzzle here. So we've got a fiery part of the deck here that we can't get by unless we go some of these other routes. But we've got these barrels around here and they'll be labeled with an icon. This one is a water barrel. So as one might expect, if I pick this up, click, drag, and telekinesis could do this if my character didn't want to pick it up manually. Or if it was too heavy. Drop it on the fire. Fire burns the barrel, puts out the fire. And now there's literally the effect steam cloud, which different things can come from that. So you can poison a steam cloud. Anybody walking through it, you're going to get poison damage.
That doesn't bode well. Onwards and upwards.
And as I expected, unfortunately, I never found a lockpick, so I cannot open this door. So I'm not going to get back there unless I get lucky moving forward. Still that painting though.
God damn it! Need to get off this wreck and quick!
And that door is also locked.
Not long before this thing snaps into splinters!
lose a bow. Let's clear out this. A weapon, I'll note this, there aren't weapon sets like a lot of games like this, but weapons do give skills, and they can be hot swapped, I believe, even in a fight. It takes some action points to do so, but for example, by equipping these daggers, I gained access to a new dagger ability, which should pop up. Flurry. Perform 3 quick attacks, dealing 2 to 3 damage. If I were to equip this bow, I lose Flurry. Actually, I picked up a pocket knife. It looks like it is exactly the same as a shiv. So here, telekinesis would be great because I can pick up that barrel without having to walk through the fire and put the fire out. It looks like here I'm probably going to take a couple points of damage. Yep. But then I got it out, and I put myself out in the process. Key.
You passed the skeleton. Yeah. Now, please. I had a mask still. Indeed, I would. The skeleton's.
Attitude plus. I said the right phrase or combination of phrases. For the most part, for terrain, for dangerous things like that, it will be smart. If I'm standing here and I click here, he'll go around the fire. And if I had other party members following me, they would do the same. That's one less thing you have to worry about. But occasionally it'll clip, and, or if there's no way through, they'll move right through it.
Pounding on the hull.
Last little bit of looting. So you can see the gold icon here with a little star by it. That lets you know, hey, you haven't checked this yet, but this one you have. Really hoping for a lockpick here. I've used an undead in the past. Like I said earlier, used his finger bone to break in there, and there's some good stuff in there. Nothing required for the story, obviously.
The marking on the door, you press it to the door. Something's breaking through! What the hells are those things?
I will say this, it's a little spoilery, but Death Fog is a status. If you walk into it, you instantly die. And thinking about that, I need to save. However, undead are immune to it, so yet another kind of cool undead trait. But all of the cool things they can do is balanced by the fact that they can't heal traditionally. Alright. Now we're in our first traditional combat, and as you can see when I put my cursor over there, there's that backstab window. So if my character's standing anywhere in that cone, he will get backstab damage. And as you remember, trait that I took allows me to move. So you can see when I move here, the further I move, the more AP it takes. And because of my ability, I can move up to this far, about 5.5 meters, without taking any action. As soon as I go beyond that, it's a point. As soon as I hit 10 point, or 11, now it's 2. So for me to be able to, I can move just enough to completely reposition without spending my action points, which are down here at the bottom. The orbs tell you how much you can do per turn. For me to be able to move into position, I can make attacks, which will cost 2 or 3 orbs, without doing anything. Like Backlash, for instance, takes a point of action to move, but it's going to also give me an attack. All for 1 point. If I move here manually for 0 points and then attack, it's 2. So even though I can do that, we're just going to go ahead and Backlash anyway. So I did that critical. That leaves me with 3 points. I could use Adrenaline, but there's another guy. I'm going to need that point afterwards. So 3 points, I am going to flurry it. Each one of those critted. So you can see here the Voidling had to walk through this, or chose to walk through this poison to get to me, and in doing so poisoned itself. So positioning can really be your friend. However, now I've got myself flanked, which is reducing my ability to dodge, which is no good. And there's blood on the ground too, which can be electrified or frozen. So again, it's the several terrains going on in the very first traditional fight. So I can get to here for free. These things do not get attacks. An icon will show up over their head at like a kind of a big red sword that'll tell you, hey, if you try to move away from this guy, he'll get to hit you. Which is one of the reasons why I did it. I knew he could not. So yeah, I was able to move here for free, and let's just do one attack. That should finish him. And that leaves me with 2 points and a guy out of range. I can't even run up to him to hit him. It takes 3. I don't think I will be able to kill him with this turn. Not close enough to Petrifying Touch. We'll just throw a knife at him. I'm not behind him, so I'm not going to get a backstab, but that's alright. So we took a little more poison damage before he got to me. Now it's my turn. Let's Adrenaline it up. So now I've got 6 points, and if you go over that, you lose it, so there would be no reason to try to do that. So let's use my 0 movement to go back here. And I could do this 2-strike 3 times. And I might as well. And I got him. I left something alive that I didn't intend to. Because every drop of experience helps. And they are evil. So, let's try to use our stealth. As long as I stay out of the dark red, I'll be fine. Knife, that's my ranged ability. Looks like it's just out of place though. That'll get him. So this should do a lot of extra damage from sneak. after me. And I did not heal from that last fight, so we'll see how well this one goes. Okay, so there's the icon that I was mentioning earlier. If I try to run, he is going to hit me. And that's where that other trade would have come in handy. So let's get the drop on this guy. Because that does not allow him to attack me. And let's try to petrify him. It's resisted by magic armor, but if I cursor over this guy, over his health bar, which is the red, is only one bar, and that's gray, and that represents physical armor. So he has no magical armor. So petrification should hopefully work. And it did. I only have 1 point left. You can save extra points, and they'll add on the next turn. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. So he spent his turn breaking that petrify. And I now have 5 points to spend instead of only 4. If I did Adrenaline now, it's going to waste a point. But if I flurry him, I now have 2. I can Adrenaline. Back to 4. And now hopefully these 2 sets of hits will kill it. Yep. Back up top we go. I'm gonna loot this guy here, but I want to be really careful. This guy has nothing anyway. Some gloves. So you can see here the 3 physical armor, the 2, the 1, the 1. I found some pants that aren't stolen. Forgot to put those on. So it all adds up. So now I have accumulation of 8 physical armor. What that means is it's essentially almost another health bar. Anything that does physical damage will hit physical armor first until it's 0, and then it will start hurting my health. And physical armor and magic armor will recover as soon as the fight's over, but health will not. But it's important to have kind of a combination of both, because if something does magic damage, it's going to go straight through my health. So I'm kind of hoping the rain puts this fire out. I've noticed on some starts it does, and some it does not. My physical armor won't... Yep, I walked too close. So now I'm burning. I could grab those water barrels. They're very, very heavy. I can't even move on carrying it. That's going to be annoying. That's going to be real annoying. So at some point of encumbrance, you can still move. Right now I'm at 118. And then above that, you're just stuck there. So it looks like I'm doing the slow crawl. Reason I'm doing so is there's a couple of bodies up here to loot. this right. And get a wand. A couple of gold out of it. And I took some damage. Not too bad.
Lifeboat. That means there's still a chance.
You do it.
Shut your trap, kid. The dwarf is...
You're
gonna be the death of...
Oops. I hate to do it, but I am going to use a health potion right here.
If you could walk...
I certainly would have saved had I not known that this fight was going to happen. But I'm a little afraid of these guys getting the jump on me. Try to get as far away as I can. Let some of the others take the hits.
I thought Voidwoken was supposed to be scary.
I've faced worse.
This battle's pretty epic. We got all these allied characters taking turns, kind of showcasing what they
Let the
specialize in,
games begin.
whether that be magic or stealth. You can see Sibyl here is obviously another rogue. Doing the same kind of teleporting move that I did.
These beardless bugs would sink the ship on my watch. Meet your maker.
Interesting choice there. He petrified it, and then tried to let it on fire after the petrification status effect made him immune to fire. Immune to burning, I should say, the status effect of burning. But not as strange as Los walking straight into that fire and lighting herself. Fortunately, unlike a lot of games of this nature, because it's turn-based, you get to control every party member. She just unfortunately burned a health potion. It's up to me to save the day. Oh, let's adrenaline to finish it off. Looks like I'm not getting to it with one turn. And I moved too far away from my action points to... But... that still leaves me 5, so I can do a... Looks like he's taking the back, so I can't actually even get in a backstab. That's unfortunate, so let's petrify. some bugs real quick. Where's the fourth one? Ah, down here. Bodies don't highlight with the Alt key either, so sometimes they can be hard to find. Looks like we got them all. And now before we leave the ship, which is going down, can't forget all my stolen stuff.
I hear something. It's Magister Siwan.
She tries to speak, but with jagged movements, blood quickly soaks through.
Oh, that's right, I already pickpocketed her. And that's the opening for Divinity Original Sin 2.
Those Voidwoken made short bloody work of the ship. Am
I think
the
I'll probably
lone
cut here,
survivor?
given that it's almost midnight, and
This must be
my
Fort
son
Joy.
fussing a little bit. So I want to thank everybody for joining in and watching, and I'll catch you next time when we start to explore this island and find some party members. And looks like we're close to leveling up and starting to learn some more abilities. So thanks everybody, and have a good one.